Hey everybody, welcome to episode 31 of Cool Chords. Today we are going to be taking a look at a very fascinating song by XTC titled Easter Theater. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so we have a lot of cool stuff to discuss with this song. It has such an amazing and adventurous chord progression, and just overall, it's such an incredible song. I would definitely consider it to be one of my favorite XTC songs of all time. But before we jump into it, there are a couple of things that I want to mention for anybody who might already be familiar with the chords to this song. So there are two different ways to play the chords. There is the lower voicings, which is what Andy Partridge plays on acoustic guitar. And there's a really fascinating video of him talking about the process behind writing this song. And on that recording, he's playing these chords on the acoustic guitar, and he does them down here. He runs them down there. But on the actual recording, I don't think that he's playing guitar. On the studio recording, the voicings are happening between the strings. The strings are doing the higher parts, and then on the bottom, there's some sort of brass instrument playing the low notes all the way down here. But unfortunately, that was impossible to work out all the voicings on the guitar, so I just took the bottom note and I put it an octave higher. So kind of like what I'm doing here is a little bit of a hybrid. I'm trying to get the voicings that the strings are playing on the recording as close as possible on the guitar. So just for anybody who already knows the lower chords, that's why I'm playing them up here rather than down there. I'm just basing it more off of the string part rather than the guitar chords that Andy played. And one other thing, in terms of the right hand technique for playing this, I experimented with pretty much every different combination. I did pick and fingers, I did just a pick, and then I did just fingers. And for me, just the fingers was probably the easiest way to get these voicings to come out the most clearly. But I would say, just try whatever right hand technique that you're comfortable with and see how it feels. And if it's a little bit tricky, then maybe just, mix it up and experiment with some different techniques and see which one works the best for you. But for me, the finger picking ended up seeming the most practical. Okay, so I'm going to break this up into two parts. First, I'm just going to show you the guitar part and the right hand technique as well as the chord fingerings that I'm doing in the left hand. And then in part two, I'll talk more about the theory behind what I think is going on within these chords, which is pretty interesting. This is actually one of those songs where I had to think about it a lot in terms of the theory that's going on. And a lot of it really doesn't make any sense, which is some of my favorite stuff to discover in songs when you can't really make sense of it, but it just sounds so good for some reason. So I will share my findings behind the theory, and if you have any input, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so for the first chord of the verse, I am doing this fingering. I'm putting my pinky on the 7th fret of the A string. Then I skip a string. My ring finger will go on the 6th fret of the G string. And then my pointer is going to go to the 4th fret of the B string. So I'm calling this chord C sharp minor add 9 over E. And like I said, I'll talk more about the theory part of it in part two. So these three strings, the A string, the G string, and the B string, are going to be the only three strings that we're going to be using for all of the voicings within the verse. So for my right hand, I'm doing this. I'm putting my thumb on the 5th string, my pointer on the 3rd string, and then my middle on the 2nd string. And the pattern we do is this. So the pointer and middle are going just 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then the thumb is playing beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you go. So you play the thumb on the first one, then then you do the upper two notes by themselves, and then back to the thumb. So the thumb happens every other note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now after that, this is probably the worst stretch of all of the chords throughout the song, and I'm doing this for a reason. You'll understand why I'm doing the chord like this when we get to the end of the verse. So what I'm doing here now is we keep everything the same in the chord, except we're going to take our pinky and slide it up a fret. So it slides up from E to F. Alright, it's a little bit of a stretch, like I said, but once we get to the end of the verse, you'll see why this fingering just kind of makes everything easier. And then the same pattern is happening in the right hand, where we do the thumb on every other note, and then we do the pointer and middle on every eighth note. So far we have this. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this exact same voicing and go 1, 2, 3, slide it up 3 frets. So now our frets are 11, 9, and 7. Okay, so the same chord, just 3 frets higher. The same right hand pattern as well. And then all we do is move the same chord another 2 frets higher. Okay, so that's the first 4 bars of the verse. So up to there we have this. Alright, and then we go back and repeat it again, and we're going to have a second ending that leads us into the chorus. So we do it again. Do the entire thing a second time through, and then after we have done it twice, we're going to do this really bizarre chord that has some really awesome dissonance in it with this minor second interval, where now we're doing this. We take our ring finger and we slide it up a fret from 11 up to 12, and then we do that same pattern again in the right hand, but it's going to be a little bit longer. So we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and, so we do an extra 4 patterns in the right hand. Okay, now right here I included this just because this is what is happening in the strings, but if you want to leave this part out, if it makes it too complicated, you can just do this whole pattern 2 times in a row. Like that sounds fine, but if you want to do what's happening in the strings, the final 2, they do this little tricky 16th note thing. Alright, so I have a hard time with that, but I'm just going like this. I'm doing my thumb on the 5th string, and then my pointer plays the 3rd string, and I go like this. So after I play those 2 notes together, then my middle finger goes to the 2nd string, pointer to the 3rd string, middle to the 2nd. So that's the first pattern. And you just do that twice. Alright, it does make it a little bit tricky to go right from that into the chorus, but if you practice it slow and then gradually work it up, it is playable, but it's not ideal on the guitar. But okay, so just the second time through of that verse, we have this. Okay, and like I said, this second ending right here is the main reason why I use the ring finger and the ring finger and the pinky, because I used to do the chords like this. Instead of the ring finger, I would use the middle finger, but then I just noticed sometimes I wouldn't always be able to get to that chord as smoothly as I would like, as opposed to just having the ring finger and sliding it up a fret. That just seemed to work better. So a lot of this song was a lot of trial and error, just trying different chord fingerings, different right hand techniques. It's not something that is the easiest thing to play on the guitar, but it just sounds so cool that I wanted to see if I could translate it over in some sort of way. So after this part, then we have our chorus. So we start out on this really beautiful chord, this G major add 9 over B. So the voicing I'm doing is I'm barring my pointer finger across 7 from the 6th string up to the 3rd string. So I go that far, and then all I do is I take my pinky and I add it to the 10th fret of the 5th string. And you want to make sure that your pinky's not too flat, because you don't want to mute any of the other barred notes, right? So make sure you're using as much of the tip of that pinky as you can. And now the pattern that I'm doing for this is I'm doing my thumb on the 6th string, and then I do the next 3 notes with my pointer, middle, and ring on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string, and I do that 4 times. So I go, okay, it's just 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then we go to this D power chord, so 5th fret on the 5th string, then I put my ring on 7 on the D string, and then my pinky on 7 on the G string, and I go. I do the same pattern, but only twice. So I do my thumb on the 5th string, and then pointer and middle on the 4th and 3rd, and I go. Only do it twice, and then I take the 5th fret, I slide it down a fret to 4, my pinky plays 7, and my ring plays 6. So, and then we do the same right hand pattern. They're thumb, pointer, middle, thumb, pointer, middle. So. Okay, so we do that entire progression starting from the chorus. We do that 3 times. So. And then we go down to this C add 9 chord. So it's on the 4 middle strings, the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. And the frets are 3, 2, open, 3. So right here we do the same pattern that we did on the first chord of the chorus. So we do the thumb, and then the upper 3 fingers, pointer, middle, and ring on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. And then we do that pattern 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have this little passing chord. So all you have to do is this. Take your middle finger off, and then your pointer finger, just move it up a string. That's called G over B, and we only do that twice. So up to there now we have. All right, and then we go to an F chord. So it's like an F bar chord, but we leave out the top notes. It's just the first 4 notes, so you don't have to flatten your pointer finger. So it's 1, 3, 3, 2. And same pattern, the thumb does the bottom note on the 6th string, and then pointer, middle, and ring do the next 3 strings. And we do this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you just slide this chord up a fret to an F sharp chord and play all the notes at the same time and let it ring out for 2 whole bars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So a really wild progression that just goes in so many different directions. The harmonic movement is all over the place. Lots of really great uses of inversions within the chords. So let me see if I could play the whole thing now in its entirety. Hopefully I won't make any mistakes, but I can't make any promises. So here we go. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the theory that is happening within this song, because like I said, this is a pretty ambiguous song. There's not a very clear tonal center, at least in the first section. The chorus gets a little bit more into some familiar territory, and you could hear the very clear key of D major, but this opening section is really like all over the place. So in terms of the chord voicings that he's using, they're basically all just inversions of add 9 chords, either major or minor add 9s. Because if we look at this first chord, right, it's E, C sharp, D sharp. So E and C sharp, right, that's a minor third. If we just invert that, if we put the E an octave higher, it gives us a minor third. So that's like a pretty clearly defined C sharp minor sound. But he puts the E note on the bottom, and then he adds a D sharp, which is the second, right? So pretty clear, like C sharp minor, add 9 over E. And then he raises it 1 on the bottom note, right, from E to F, and that turns it into a major add 9 chord. So right there, if we were just to simplify those first 2 chords into like the most basic forms, it would be C sharp minor to C sharp major, right? But because he's adding the 9s and he's inverting the chord by putting the 3rds in the bottom, it sounds so much different, right? Rather than... So then once he takes this chord, this C sharp major add 9 with the 3rd in the bass, when he moves it up 3 frets, now it becomes E major add 9 with the 3rd in the bass, and then he moves up another 2 frets, which turns it into F sharp major add 9 with the 3rd in the bass. So in terms of the simplified versions of the chords for the verse, you would think C sharp minor, C sharp major, E major, F sharp major. So that like kind of vaguely resembles some sort of C sharp tonality, I would say, right? Because he's starting on C sharp minor, then he goes to C sharp major, then he goes to E and F sharp, which could be viewed as like a chord movement within the key of C sharp. But to be honest, I don't think Andy Partridge was thinking in terms of theory at all when he wrote this song. I think it sounds to me more like he just had some chords that he was messing with, and he was just experimenting with moving some notes until he found some sounds that he really liked. So, in terms of coming up with a very clear theoretical analysis of this song, I don't really think there is one, but if you can come up with something to explain a lot of this, I would be all ears. So in terms of that opening section, I kind of, simplified the chords down to that just to try to get to the essence of what sort of movement is happening. And then I looked at the vocal melody, because a lot of times that can also give you a little bit of insight into what might be happening harmonically. And the vocal melody left me more confused because he kind of seems to be singing around like the first 5 notes of a B major scale. But then right there, the first time, he lands on a C note when it gets to this C sharp major add 9 over with the 3rd in the bass, which would be the major 7th of the C sharp major sound. So, but then every other time he lands on the root. So like I said, he's kind of singing around the first 5 notes of a B major scale. But sometimes he's playing C natural, sometimes he's playing C sharp. So it's really kind of hard to get a grasp on exactly what key this is in, because the vocal notes that he sings over the beginning doesn't really give me like a C sharp major or C sharp minor sort of sound, which is, like I said, was kind of the key center that it seemed like the verse was based off of. But then you look at the vocal melody and it's really kind of just hazy and unclear as to what is going on, but somehow it all sounds so good together, which is one of my favorite things to discover when I'm listening to a song, because I love theory, I love technical stuff, but when something sounds so good and you can't really make sense of why it does, to me that's some of the most magical music that can ever be written. And that's another one of the reasons why I love Brian Wilson so much, and I do so many covers of a lot of his songs, because there are a lot of moments that don't really make sense, but they sound so incredible. And I think to be able to achieve that is like one of the highest forms of musicianship, and one of the things that I love so much about Andy Partridge and his writing style. So that's basically what I came up with for the verse. And then that second ending, when we go, this chord right here, I was very puzzled as to what to name this chord, because the 3 notes are B flat, G, and A flat, which doesn't give us a ton of information. But if we look at the B flat to G and we invert that, it's like G and B flat, which could be a G minor chord, but then we have an A flat. So it's not very common to put a flat 9 on a minor chord. So instead, I thought maybe this could be the 3rd and 5th of E flat major, and then he's adding the 11. So I called it E flat add 11 over B flat. Kind of a stretch to even come up with a name for this chord. Like I said, I don't think Andy was thinking in terms of theory. I think he just moved some notes around and found some sounds that he likes. And this is like a perfect example of that, because all you're doing is taking this chord and then raising that one note, right, the 11th fret to the 12th fret, to get a whole new sound. But that is a great chord to create some really eerie sort of tension that leads us into the chorus. So after we do that, then we get to the chorus. Now, one thing that's fascinated me so much about the chorus to this song is when it first enters and we hear that first chord, it sounds like so dark and so ominous to me. But then as the chorus continues, it gets like so much happier within the span of a couple of seconds. So I don't know if anybody else has noticed that with this song, but another thing that just always blows my mind every time I listen to this song. But now when we get to the chorus, we're very clearly in the key of D major. And what he does is he starts on this G major add 9 over B. So this would be the 4 chord in the key of D major. So we start on 4. And then we go to the 1 chord, so D major. It sounds like in the bottom they're just doing a power chord, right? The root 5th and the root. But it's very clearly D major because Andy is singing the F sharp. Right, so 4, now 1. And then we do an A over C sharp, so an inverted 5 chord. So the Roman numerals are 4, 1, 5. We do that 3 times. 4, 1, 5. Now right here we go to the flat 7. So the flat 7 is a common chord to go to when you're in a major key. So we're in the key of D major, and then he goes down to C major with the add 9. So nothing too unusual there. And then we have this little passing chord. And oh, by the way, over this C chord, he's singing F sharp and E. So it's like a C, like a Lydian sound. All right, and then we have this little passing chord, this G over B, so to get that chromatic movement in the bass, where you just take the C, go down a half step to B. And then right here, we have an F major chord. So this part is particularly fascinating because he's actually singing a flat 9 over the F chord, which is something that's very uncommon and something I haven't really encountered in very many songs ever. So, and it's amazing that it actually sounds good. Another example of something that doesn't make sense theoretically, but it sounds so great, because he does this. He does the F sharp over when we do that C chord, and then right here, right? That's a fascinating sound. So the F major with the G flat on top, just like unheard of. So F major chord. So in terms of Roman numerals, I don't even know what's going on right here because we have this F major chord, and then he goes up a half step to F sharp. And another thing that's really bizarre is this F sharp chord right here sounds like a resolution, right? It sounds like we landed somewhere, but nothing that was happening within that section had anything to do with F sharp major. So another thing that I can't really wrap my head around, but it sounds so amazing. And then after that, we're back to the verse again. So then we're back to that kind of like loose, ambiguous key of something resembling C sharp. But like I said, if you have any more insight into what might be going on within this song, I would love to hear your thoughts, because this one, I really had to rack my brain and think about this for a while. There's some truly interesting stuff going on in this song. So I cannot say enough good things about this song. And if you haven't checked out this song, you're missing out. I would highly recommend it. One of the coolest, most interesting XTC songs of all time, in my opinion. So that is our episode for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And as always, if you would like to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/MikeAudetteMusic, or if you would like to just make a donation, you can do so at paypal.me/MikeAudetteMusic. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you at the next episode. Take care.